sallallahu alayka ya sayyidina ya maulaya ya aba abdillah sallallahu alayka ya ibn rasulillah يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب النجاة الأمة يا غريب يا مظلوم يا شهيد كربلاء فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوذ والله فوزا عظيما أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. My dear brothers and sisters, my elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, we send our condolences to Imam Sahib al-Amr al-Salatu was-salam on these, the nights of the Ayam, the Layal, the Istishhad of Abu Abdillah al-Salatu was-salam. For the Shahadat of Abu Abdillah, as Mulana Jafar Mehdi reminded us so beautifully, is a fire as is described by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a fire that burns in the hearts of the mu'mineen, and a fire that cannot be quenched, cannot be dulled, cannot be extinguished by anything till the Day of Judgment. And that fire burns and it continues to grow in intensity as we move through these nights and we get nearer and nearer to that day of Ashura, when the heart bursts with the flames of this fire. And the peak of that fire is on the day of Ashura. But tonight we are here on the 3rd of Muharram. 3 nights, 72 hours of Muharram have already passed us. And how blessed are we, what is our tawfiq, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to spend another Ayam al-Husayn alayhi salam in the Azar of Husayn alayhi salam. As we speak, I am on my way to Karbala for the ziyarat of Abdillah alayhi salam, and you are all in my hearts and in my du'as. And it's our intention that we will, inshallah, continue to try and serve you in the best way that we can, despite the distance between us. And believe me, were it not for the pull of Karbala, we would not leave you and refer to this medium. We would insist on being with you. But such is life, that one minute it's impossible, the next minute all of a sudden there are ways and means for us to return to Abu Abdillah. So again, I thank you so much that you allowed me not only to serve you, not only to be with you, but also you accommodated my request that we continue these majalis virtually while we take your hajat, your du'as, and your pursa. Bibi Sayyid والسلام, in the land of Najaf, in the land of Karbala, in the land of Qadamiyya, in the land of Samarra, and all the other muqaddasat we will visit, inshallah. And believe me, you will be in our du'as, and we will make every effort to try and uh, recount to you the Muharram of Iraq and send to you various different snippets of the way in which Azadari is performed in Iraq. The 3rd of Muharram means that now for 2 days Abdillah alayhi salam has been moving towards Kufa, and it is on the eve of the 2nd, the eve of the 3rd, when he reaches Karbala. But before he was to reach Karbala, he would receive a message that breaks his heart. For on the 3rd of Muharram, as well as remembering the arrival of Abdillah, we also remember the musibah of our master Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salatu wassalam. Hazrat Muslim, who is an anchor in our lives, whose shahadat marks a point in our calendars weeks before Muharram begins, after which we begin to envelop our hearts in the Azadari of Abdillah alayhi salam. Hazrat Muslim, who on the eve of Eid al-Adha is slain, is shaheed in Kufa. We begin from that moment to mourn. Yes, celebrating Eid al-Hadda. Yes, celebrating Eid al-Ghadir. Yes, celebrating Eid al-Mubahila. But all of those with the pangs of hurt in our heart for Aba Abdullah and Awlad al-Aba Abdullah and Ashab al-Aba Abdullah and the likes of Hazrat Muslim alayhi salatu wassalam. For me, personally, the Shahadat night of Hazrat Muslim alayhi salatu wassalam is a very important night because it begins our annual return to the Farsh Azar, to the place of mourning, to the gathering of Dard, which is a testament to our belief and dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is also a testament to the dedication and efforts of our mothers and our fathers, without whom we would not be here, without whom the love of Al Muhammad would not be in our hearts, without whom we wouldn't be choosing on a day like today, when the sun is shining outside, when there's so much going on, to be sitting and mourning the likes of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqeel. It is a blessing for us, and it is a blessing we must honor our parents for they have inculcated this love in each and every one of us in such a way that if we weren't here, if we weren't partaking in the majlis, we would feel as if something is missing in our lives. We would feel as if we were physically unwell. We would feel the absence of the remembrance of Aba Abdullah alayhi salatu wassalam. And that's something special because not every community has that. Not every community sees that. And we in our own life have experienced, sometimes due to ill health, sometimes due to other very complicated reasons, being away from the majlis on the likes of the ayam of Arba'een or on the likes of the layal of the shahadat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it truly is painful. If you remember back to 2020 during COVID, how many of us wept, not only because of the fact of Muharram, but also because we were having to commemorate Muharram so far apart. We were having to watch our majalis online and not sit with other mu'mineen. We were having to be so far from one another in a time when we are so used to being so close to one another. And the shahadat of Hazrat Muslim alayhi salatu wassalam begins that. But know this, Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam was far more than just a messenger. He was far more than just a companion. He was far more than maybe what we have come to remember him for or eulogize him for. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your parents for passing the love of Muslim ibn Aqeel salam into your heart and into all of our hearts. And I say this because, as we'll see in a moment, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would show particular affection towards the children of certain families for certain reasons, and we'll see that in a moment. When we're in moments like these, in difficulty, in parashani, when there is mushkilat surrounding us, as again Maulana Jafar so beautifully said on the first night, tie your rope to the ship of Aba Abdillah. Why? Because Hussein alayhi salam is the ark of salvation, and his ark is the fastest ark of salvation. So they will make sure there is light next to your name when you are remembered with them. Abu Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, one of the greatest Muslims to have ever walked this earth and one of the greatest Muslims to have ever served Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ensured that he had a legacy. He ensured that even after him, service of Al Muhammad would continue through his children and their children. And he had four sons: Talib, Aqeel, Ja'far, and Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Of course, you will all be very familiar with these names. But these in turn themselves had sons. One who was known as Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam, and the other was Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salatu wassalam. So you can already see just from this family tree, this recollection of the relationship, the genealogical relationship between Hazrat Muslim and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, that there's a closeness, first cousins. But they are more than just first cousins. They are more like brothers, because they are primary members of Banu Hashim alayhi salam. They are the grandsons of Abu Talib alayhi salam, born into a house of the Risala under Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, after the masses are invited towards the religion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Many of our narrations suggest they were born quite near to each other, maybe only a few years apart, meaning again they were very close. And again, you can imagine in your own lives, we all have relatives. Some of us have cousins who are maybe 1 or 2 years older, 3 or 4 years older, or maybe we are 1 or 2 years younger to them or older than them. And there is always a real closeness between those cousins because they are of a similar age group. That's why Abu Abdillah alayhi salam and Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam are no different from us in this area. They too were very close in age, and they too were very close in relationship. We see in the Messiah that we'll come to in a moment is when Abu Abdullah alayhi salam breaks the news of the shahadat of Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam. Himself and Mawla Ghazi Abbas alayhi salam are very deeply affected by this news, and they mourn and they weep for their brother Hazrat Muslim. Through his earliest years, Muslim ibn Aqeel alayhi salam was witness to many key events in the history of Islam, through the travels and the journeys that were taken in the African continents, the Battle of Siffin, and he'd seen the treachery of the Arab. They'd seen the way in which people had turned their back on his uncle Imam Ali alayhi salam. But he had also seen the likes of Abu Dhar, the likes of Miqdad, the likes of Salman al-Muhammadi alayhi salatu wassalam, and so many others who had stayed so loyal. And these events themselves would become a pinnacle within the life of Muslim ibn Aqeel, making him well known to people. He was known to be the most powerful and brave of the sons of Aqeel alayhi salatu wassalam, and his performance on the battlefield marked this. In the Masa'ib, when we look at in the Maqtal, in the way in which Mawla Abbas alayhi salam is when he comes into the battlefield, they say the enemies begin to tremble in fear. Similar narrations were there about Hazrat Muslim. That when Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam would stand face to face with those who were against him and the values and the message of his uncles and his imams, they would tremble in fear because Muslim alayhi salam was known to be a ferocious warrior. Sometimes we forget these elements of the lives of Al Muhammad alayhi salam. They were gracious, they were kind, they were the gentlest of human beings. However, if they were face to face with an enemy of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad alayhi salam, they were the worst person you'd want to be in front of, because they were the complete opposite of generous and gentle and kind. They were with Haqq, and Haqq was with them, and they would ensure that the Haqq was delivered. Recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa Ajal farajahum. So as we said, Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam was one of the children of Aqeel alayhi salam, first cousin of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, and similar in age to Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. He then too, Hazrat Muslim, has a number of sons, 2 to 4, most narrations suggest, 2 of whom are shaheed in Karbala, 2 of whom are taken as captives. They are put in jail for almost a year, if not more, in Kufa, and then they are, unfortunately, the history is there. They are shaheed in the outskirts of Kufa in a place known as Musayyib. And again, many of you as Zawar, mashallah, you'll always, I'm sure, go to Tiflan Muslim alayhi salam with the 2 very famous and distinctive domes, and you see the area where they are buried is very far from where the traditional society was. Of course, market and a village has been built around their haram, but you can see it's far away from other places because they were taken to a faraway land, just like their uncle Abu Abdillah alayhi salatu wasalam. We also know from our books of history that Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam had a daughter, and we know from the Masa'ib the way in which Abu Abdillah alayhi salam treated this daughter, and the way in which he was so kind and generous towards this daughter. Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam behaved in the way that many of Ali Muhammad would behave. And this is really important. The wider Al Muhammad were very conscious and careful that in the time of an Imam they were not seen to be going ahead of the Imam or seen to be casting a shadow over the Imam by being more available or more seen. So they would very deliberately ensure that they withheld. Take the example of Mawla Abbas alayhi salatu wasalam. I'm hoping that on the 8th of Muharram, when we commemorate Mawla Abbas, we'll look, inshallah, at this famous sermon he gives from on top of the Kaaba, warning the people about what they're about to do and what they're about to see. But that's probably one of the only occasions, maybe outside of the day of Ashura, you will find Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam giving a khutbah of that kind. Otherwise, he's always behind Abu Abdullah. He is in the shadow of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. And Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam is very similar in that he would not be seen to be giving public statements and sermons, etc., because Imam al-Mujtaba alayhi salam is there, Imam Abu Abdullah alayhi salam is there, until we get to Kufa. Now, when we get to Kufa, things change. Why? Because of the purpose with which Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam is sent. So we know thousands of letters are written to Abu Abdullah. And when we say letters, we don't mean letters on pieces of paper, like we have today. We mean letters that are written on animal skin, letters that are heavy to carry, letters that have to be delivered to the person that they're being written to. Very, very moving scenes in the sense that it's not as simple as delivering a piece of paper. It's a heavy item. To write it takes time. To package it takes time. To deliver it takes time. And in all of that, we remind ourselves, even then the people turn their back on Abu Abdullah. But in responding to that call from the people, Abu Abdullah wishes to review the situation in Kufa. He wishes for an assessment to be carried out. How are the people of Kufa? Are the people of Kufa with us? Is this really what they write in their letters? Is it the case? This is a crucial moment in history, brothers and sisters, because any time an Imam alayhi salam or a Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam sends a person to represent them, the person they are choosing is the representative of the Hujjat of Allah on this earth, the Imam Waqt alayhi salatu wassalam on this earth, the final proof of Allah on this earth. That means whoever is being sent needs to embody the values of the Imam. They need to embrace the behaviors of the Imam. They need to embrace and role model the entirety of the Imam. So it's not a small moment when you're choosing who do I send. We don't just pick anyone who's available. No, the Imam thinks, who is it? Who is appropriately placed to represent me? The road to Karbala is already set. The person being sent in this instance will be remembered for all of time to come. They go in place of the Imam. They go to fulfill the authority placed upon them by the Imam. The Imam choosing them is choosing the person most akin to them in speech and appearance and all of the ways we said. Someone that aligns with them in every way possible. So if you have ever found yourself thinking, what was the maqam of Muslim ibn Aqeel? How important was Hazrat Muslim? How significant was he? Was he someone of great status, or was he another member of the wider family? This moment sets that aside. Because Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, when he says go towards Kufa and take your two children with you, he is making it clear Muslim ibn Aqeel is the most like me in ways, the most like me in behavior, the most like me in value, the most like me in appearance, the most like me in speech, and he can represent me in the city of Kufa. If you ever needed a recommendation, that's a recommendation. That is Abu Abdullah stamping his approval and saying, Hazrat Muslim alayhi salam, go towards the city. Hazrat Muslim has the most sought after work reference in the history of mankind. And it reminds me, of another occasion when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be standing and he would be wondering, who do I give the banner to? Who do I give the banner to? Who do I give the banner to? Until he would look towards the city of Medina and call out, Nadi aliyan ya madhar al-ajaib, tajidhu awna laka fihi al-nawaib, kullu hammin wa ghammin sayanjali, bi'azamatika ya Allah, binabuwatika ya Muhammad, biwilayatika ya Ali. And he would give his alam, his standard, his honor to Amir al-Mu'minin salam. Again, proving, showing visibly, audibly, in action to the people, Ali, Ali, Ali. Recite Salawat ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So if we go back to the city of Kufa, initially when Hazrat Muslim enters the city, there is huge support. There are people that come to pledge for days and days, people in authority, people in the city, people who are leaders, people who are lay people, everyone coming to give allegiance. But none of this blinds the Muslim to his purpose. He doesn't get distracted by the fact that, look at all these people giving me importance, wow. No, he knows his action there is to represent the Imam of his time, to represent his Mullah. When he eats, who he is seen to be eating with matters, because that is someone who's going to be associated with Abu Abdillah alayhi salam. If he takes advice from someone, whoever that person is, he has to think, is there someone who is worthy of giving advice to Abu Abdillah alayhi salam? When he visits people, when he takes parts in things, he has to continuously think, is this the manner of Al Muhammad alayhi salam? That is why on that night in the city, when Ibn Ziyad al-La'in comes to visit Hani ibn Urwa in his house, and they concoct a plan, and they say to Muslim alayhi salam, you hide in the cupboard, we will cough, you come out, and you attack Ibn Ziyad al-La'in. The La'in comes, they're communicating, Hani is unwell on the bed, he's come to visit. The signal comes, nothing happens. After a few moments, again, the signal comes, nothing happens. Until after Ibn Ziyad is gone, they ask Hazrat Muslim, why? He said 2 reasons. 1, you have invited me as a guest into your house. I do not want, because of me, for your women and children to go through tribulation. 2, because we Al Muhammad never attack from behind. We never face our enemy from the back. We don't do this. Why? Because it's treacherous. We give them an opportunity to look us eye to eye. That's Muslim ibn Aqeel. And again, the musibah is, he doesn't wish to cause tribulation to the women and children of the house of Hazrat Hani. But what would become of his own women when they are taken captive with the ladies of Al Muhammad? This is what Muslim alayhi salam was. And it's similar, this is the beauty, that we can see that there are Al Muhammad who are at one level, and at a level that is of the most exemplar. But then you also have Ashab of Al, and they too show us the sign. We have a famous narration from the time of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa Ajal farajahum, in which Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam is visited by a companion called Sahal from Khurasan. And Sahal is communicating with him and telling him, Mawla, we have 100,000. Mawla, we have this many, that thousand, that many, that thousand, that many, that thousand. Mawla, come and do something. Fight for us. Mawla, rise for us. Mawla looks towards Sahal. He says, oh, Sahal, go and step into the tandoor. You see that tandoor over there? Go, sit in it. Sahal looks at his mom. Panics, Big sweat begins to come on his brow. Oh, my master, Yabna Rasulullah, do not punish me. Do not put me in the fire. Make it easy for me. Why are you doing this to me? At the same time, another companion comes, Harun al-Makki. As he enters, Assalamu alaikum, Yabna Rasulullah, wa alaikum assalam. Sahal, go and, Harun, go and sit in the tandoor. Harun has just entered, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, go to the tandoor. He doesn't even stop for a second. He just continues moving, changes his direction, takes his slippers off, places them under his arm, opens the tandoor, sits inside, and shuts the door behind him. Allah. Not just gets inside, shuts the door behind him. Imam Sadiq turns back to Sahel. He begins to talk to Sahel, asking of the people of Khurasan, asking questions. Sahel keeps looking, you know, uh, Harun has been in the door 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how long Harun sat in there. And Sahel is panicking. What's become of him? Finally, the Imam looks towards the door. He says, open the door. They open the door. Harun is sitting there, completely at peace, at ease, enjoying himself. The Imam looks to him. He says, Harun, how was it? Harun says, it was as if there was a cool breeze encompassing. It was as if I was surrounded by the coolness and the stillness of all that is beauty. That's what our Imam needs. That's what the Imams need. That's what Imam Hussain had as a Muslim. Someone who would not question, someone who would fulfill to every letter, and someone who would strive to ensure that everything that the Imam asked of them was delivered. And Hazrat Muslim did that till his final moment. When in the city of Kufa, on that night, the night before the Eid of Al-Adha, Muslim alayhi salam leads the Maghrib namaz with thousands, finishes with a few, leads the Isha with a few, finishes with none. And then he's going from door to door to door until he comes to the door of a lady called Daw'a. He says to her, "Oh lady, may I have some water?" She gives him. He says, he moves away. The lady says, "Oh man, are you a stranger?" He says, "Yes, I am a stranger." She says, "Come, stay." He says, "I do not wish to cause you any issues, any discomfort." She says, "No, I insist." He says, "Do you know who I am?" She says, "No." He says, "Do you know of my master, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam?" She says, "Yes." "From Medina?" He says, "Yes." She says, "Are you from the family of Al Muhammad?" He says, "Yes." She says, "My master, Abdillah, how is he?" He says, "Your master is coming to this city, O lady." He goes into the house, and he would go into the house, and he would stay there until the sun would come, and the sun, who is a greedy man, would report to Ibn Ziyad al-La'in that this man is here. They would come to try and capture Hazrat Muslim. They would fight and fight until they had no soldiers left. They would call Ibn Ziyad, send a message to Ibn Ziyad, send more. Ibn Ziyad would say to them, "Are you fighting one man, or are you fighting a whole army?" They say, "Oh Ibn Ziyad, know this, we are fighting one man, but he is the son of Ja'far al-Tayyar. He is the son of Hadr al-Karrar. He is the son of Al-Aqeel. He is the son of Bani Hashim. He is more than just one man." Allah. Until they dig a ditch, they cover it with their treachery until they trick Hazrat Muslim into falling into the ditch. They take Hazrat Muslim to the castle of Ibn Ziyad, and here Hazrat Muslim says, "I have 3 requests. Will you please fulfill them?" "What is the first?" "I have a debt. Please sell my armor, sell my sword, and pay the debt." "What is the second?" "The second is, give me some water." "What is the third?" "The third is, tell my master Abdillah, don't come here." Allah, they say, "As for the first, we will do this. As for the second, here is some water. But as for the third, we will not send a message to your master, Abdillah." Muslim takes the water. He goes to drink, but blood from his mouth would fall into the water. Again, they bring more. He goes to drink. Again, blood would fall. Maybe Muslim would look towards Karbala and say, "Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah," knowing that maybe Allah wishes for me to die like my master Hussein, without any water, thirsty, with my lips parched. They cut the head of Muslim ibn Aqeel. At this moment, Aba Abdullah is going. He says to the camp, "Stop." He calls on Mullah Abbas alayhi salam. He says, "Oh Abbas, look between my fingers." Aba Abdullah lifts his hand. Mullah Abbas looks through. He says, tell me, what do you see, O Abbas? He says, I see a man falling from the castle of Kufa. He says, oh my brother, this is our brother Muslim. Abba Abdillah begins to cry. Mullah Abbas says, oh Abba Abdillah, let me go. Let me help our brother Muslim. Abba Abdullah says, no, this is not your time, O Abbas. But Abbas, bring me the daughter of Muslim. The daughter of Hazrat Muslim is brought. Abba Abdullah places his hand on her head. He puts earrings in her two ears and he begins to condole her. She looks towards Abba Abdullah and says, oh Abba Abdullah, am I an orphan now? Allahu Akbar. This is the household of Al Muhammad. They know what it means to be an orphan. Allah, Allah. Look at the way in which Abba Abdullah treats the orphan daughter of Muslim. And then look at the way in which the Muslims treat the orphan daughter of Abba Abdullah. Because someone is pulling her hair. Someone is slapping her cheeks. Someone is pulling the earrings. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. والسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي انقلب ينقلبون صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.